Hi guys, my name is John McGarry. I am the Yamaha District Manager. I live in Buffalo, New York. We cover all of New England, half of Canada, and your entire region for the Yamaha CIS portion of their line. So what is available data. So it's the CIS stands for Commercial Installation Solutions. So it's really, we're going to go way into depth about what that means and where we fit. But just to let you kind of know my role, I'm certainly your first line of defense, and I know I'm seeing some familiar names. David James, I know, has had a couple of projects that we've done together. You know, I'm kind of your first line of defense, help you with design, answer stock questions, anything along those lines. I'm just going to let people kind of join here for a couple more minutes. I've been with Yamaha since May of 2017, but actually was working for a subsidiary of Yamaha's that they acquired in 2014. So I've kind of been sort of in the organization for about 4.5 years now. So we're really excited. I know, just to give you guys a heads up, you know, we brought on the entire Powerhouse Alliance in North America. So you and all your colleagues are distributors for us in the region. Oh, sorry, one more thing, too. Just if you have any questions, I've got the chat window open on my desktop right here. So if you do have questions, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. I have had a lot of coffee this morning, so I tend to talk fast, but feel free to just pop something in that chat window if you have any questions, and I'll address it. So first things off, right? You know, I want to kind of focus on what Yamaha does from a really high level and kind of the overall approach that they take with the CIS products. And there's a couple things that you're going to see that are certainly values that they hold, whether they're making AV receivers or motorcycles or saxophones or huge mixing consoles, right? The reliability. Yamaha has a very great track record in not only having products that have low RMA rates, etc., but you know, work for a very long time. I can't tell you how many times I go into dealers where one of the people in the room is telling me how, you know, they've had the same Yamaha receiver for 20 years and they never want to replace it because it still works. So that reliability is a hallmark of what they do. Simplicity is a big thing here, and I look at it in 3 different you know, customers that we have, right? So one of our customers is obviously the end user, right? The people that are buying this equipment, right? It needs to be easy to use. It can't be, you know, especially in you know, hospitality and retail where you maybe have a little bit more turnover, certainly in conference rooms as well. It's got to be intuitive. It's got to be easy to use so that people will use it. You know, technology that becomes confusing, people will just start abandoning it right and left. And so we always want technology to enhance an experience, not be seen as a liability. I think easy to specify is a big thing too, right? You know, Yamaha wants to make products that do the things that you, as the dealers, need it to do, right? So that it always works, it does what you need it to do, it's easy to install as well, right? So, you know, when I look at dealers, you know, often the people that are designing systems are not the ones that are necessarily, you know, climbing the ladders and turning screws. And we want to make it easy for those guys too, so that if we work quicker, we're more profitable. And that's a huge part of what we're all trying to do in our lives. Flexibility, right? Make it flexible that we can have more features with less components. Make it expandable. So if you do install a system for somebody and 2 years later they decide they want to add on to it, it's not gut the whole thing and start from scratch. You can actually retrofit a lot of this in there. Again, the quality and then efficiency too. So there are some examples where you know, lower power consumption and that can come into play. So what do we do and where do we fit, right? So the CIS applications are, oops, sorry, backed one up on you. really anywhere that people need to hear things, right? So that can be lecture halls, retail, hospitality, convention centers, what I call audio by the acre, airports, right? The JetBlue terminal at JFK Airport is all Yamaha speakers and power amps. Small huddle rooms, museums. I mean, there's the possibilities are endless, but really it's where anybody needs to be able to hear things to add and enhance an experience. Okay, and so there really is, the sky's the limit as far as where we fit and what we do. So to kind of break down the line, what I wanted to do is just give you kind of a high-level overview of what is available through Davis and what it does and how it does it. Of course, we can get really technical, and that's for a webinar for another day, but this one today is really just meant to be something that gives you guys an overview of what we do and how we do it. So the different series of mixer amplifiers, DSPs, we got control interfaces for those, and then multi-channel amps and loudspeakers. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on today. Like I said, we're not going to get super deep dive into speeds and feeds and what the configuration software looks like. That'll be for kind of a next one. We're going to keep this as a process of these webinars. I'm a big believer in training and education and making sure that you guys know what it is, who to talk to, and how to make it fit. So on the first side, right, our small little mixer MA-PA series. So MA, mixer amplifier, PA, power amplifier, right? These are really great for small installs, just need a few inputs. There is DSP built into these, feedback suppressors, compression, ducking, different reverbs, delays. There's no configuration software needed, and these are expandable. So this is really where your smaller, either restaurants, coffee shop type applications. We use these actually a lot in smaller just PA systems. There's a company up in Ontario that has 4 cafeterias that they're outfitting. They have their weekly roundup meetings, and they want just a PA in the room that they can just grab a microphone and go and talk to everybody before they all start their week's work. So very simple, set it and forget it type volumes on this. So the first one is the MA2120. This is probably the more popular of the two. MA, mixer amplifier, 2120, 2 channels of 120 watts apiece. All right, so this is allow you to have, a 2-zone mixer amplifier out of the box. You can use it for, those 1/8-inch inputs if you want to plug in an iPod or whatever to play background music. It does support being able to bridge those 2 channels together and make it a one single 200-watt 70 volts if you want. You can mix and match. So if channel A wants to be 70 volt, channel B you want to run at 8 ohm, you can. So there's a lot of flexibility in this. Built-in speaker EQs. So if you are using our speakers, there's actually specific dip switch settings. So if you're using our 6-inch ceiling speaker, on channel A, you can select that, and it automatically applies an EQ specifically for that speaker. Channel B, maybe you're running a sub on that, so you want to run, what ultimately ends up being a low-pass filter on channel B. All right. Digital control panels, which we'll get into, you can use on these. If you notice too, you can route your inputs in sections of 2 to channel A, channel B, or A and B, which is nice. So let's say, for example, you're putting this in a restaurant, and you want background music to go through to both zones, A and B, but maybe you have a paging mic on input 3 that you only want to be going to zone A. Let's say your zone A is your lobby area and maybe a couple speakers that are also outdoors. All right, we don't want the microphone to be going into the dining room, bothering the people that are having a nice dinner together, right? So just a little bit of flexibility that you can have there as well. You've got stereo inputs on there as well, and then this line out is used as a regular line out or to feed the MA or PA 2120, which is kind of the power amp expansion on this. So if you picture it, it's, none of the inputs, but you have both the two channels on there. The little brother to this one is the MA2030. Like I said, I'm not going to go through every single SKU we have just because it would take too much time, but I wanted to lead with this one because it is the most popular one. But the MA2030 is the smaller version of this. That's 2 channels of 30 watts a piece that you can run as a single 60 watt 70 volt system. On our DSPs, I think one of the things that Yamaha did that was really interesting is in the digital signal processor world in the past 10 years, you've really had this kind of big trend towards open architecture, which means that if anyone here is, programmed BSS or Symmetrics or Biamp, they kind of give you this open sandbox and you drag and drop what your processing blocks are. You can kind of really create your own signal flow, etc. And then you have your more fixed architecture. Polycom does it that way. Clear Ones is what I would call kind of their old Converge is more of a fixed architecture. And there really isn't a better or worse. I think it always comes down to what people prefer to use. A fixed architecture is going to be more efficient because we know how we want the signal flow to go. So open architectures are going to run out of DSP memory quicker. But one thing that I thought that was great that Yamaha did is said, why are we having this battle between which is better or worse? Let's offer both. And so they do. So the MTX series, the MTX3 and the MTX 5D are our fixed architecture. Our MRX7D is the open architecture. But these processors are used for larger projects with multiple zones, a lot more processing horsepower involved. And they really offer a lot more options for control and matrix mixing in different zones. Whenever I'm talking to somebody about a project and they're really in between, do I need an MA2120 or an MTX3? My question always is, what kind of control options does the customer want? Because this, when you move up to the processor side of it, it becomes a lot more flexible. So we have flexible I/O on these, right? You can turn, stereo inputs on the back to be 2 mono inputs if you need to. It's very, I think a separate webinar for us is going to be just going through some of the programming for this. We do have YDIF, which is this Yamaha digital interface, which allows you to send 16 channels of audio in and out via Cat5 cable between processors and amplifiers. I don't know if anyone, actually maybe this could be a nice little chat thing if you want to use it. Has anyone on the call ever heard of or even used Dante? I'd be curious to see how many folks on the call have done that. So open up your chat box and just say, yes, if you have. All right, Jeremy's in on there. Thank you, Jeremy. So our processors and amplifiers that have a D at the end of their model number are all going to be Dante enabled. For those who don't know what Dante is, Dante stands for Digital Audio Network through Ethernet. It is a protocol done by a third-party company called Audinate. They're out of Australia. I think the last I saw it was over 850 manufacturers in the pro audio world offer Dante solutions. It allows you to run all of your audio over a network. We'll get into that a little bit later, but just Yamaha's a huge investor in this on our digital consoles, speakers, etc. It's a big part of what we do. It's a big part of, a lot of people think it's more cutting edge, but it's actually been around for quite a while. And I guarantee any, big concert that you've gone to in the past 4 or 5 years has probably all been a Dante network running the show. It is a single software program that's a free software available on our website to program these. We do have Dan Dugan auto mixing for mic applications. This comes back to easy to use on the customer side, right? When you talk about microphones in a public space, people are already really uncomfortable speaking in public. Usually, it's kind of I think people always say it's bigger than fear of heights is public speaking. And we've all seen the kind of gag in movies where they walk up to the mic and it feeds back immediately and everybody laughs, right? That's a big, a real fear that people have. And so we have a really powerful auto mixer that's burned into all of these. It's actually broadcast quality. Most of the broadcasts you watch on television, whether it's a halftime show for the NFL or a late night show where you have maybe 2 or 3 people talking, they're all using Dan Dugan's auto mixer. And this is burned in for free on all of our processors. So if you're doing a space where maybe you have, like a council chambers for, board of selectmen or whatnot, and you have, 5 or 6 mics that are live, and you don't want to have somebody actually mixing them, you can have them all running on an auto mixer, and nobody's the wiser. You do have third-party control via IP or RS-232 on these. We do have modules for RTI. Crestron and AMX. I believe Control 4 is on the way as well. So I know a lot of you guys in that market use them. Our control interfaces are via our DCPs, which is Digital Control Panel, our MCP1, which we'll get in, or a free fully customized Provisionaire app on iOS. So on an iPad, you can actually design a touchscreen control app for your customer that, if they want their logo on there. I always tell people, if you just want to give them, they can open up the app and there's their logo on there and just one button that says off. You can do that. But give them a little control on the iPad as well. I know a lot of bars and restaurants use iPads for either POS or even, changing channels on DirecTV, that kind of thing. So to have that all in one place where they can also control their audio system is really great. SD card slots for them as well. And the MRX7D also has speech privacy built in. So a lot of horsepower with these, at not a lot of cost. And once you kind of get into the programming aspect of it, you can really see how powerful these become. So our multi-channel amplifiers. So this is a pretty straightforward thing to look at from a model number standpoint. One thing I really like about Yamaha is they tend to make their model numbers and naming conventions pretty logical. So XMV is the family of power amps, and then 8280, it's an 8-channel amplifier with 280 watts per channel, right? 8140, 8 channels, 140 watts. So they come in 2 flavors, 4 and 8 channel, and then 140 or 280 watts per channel. And then on top of that, the D at the end is a Dante-enabled amplifier. These are selectable as 4 or 8 ohm or 70 volts in pairs of 2 channels. So if you have a 4-channel amp and you want to run all your surface mount speakers off of channels 1 and 2 at 70 volts, but you got a couple subs that you want to run on 8 ohm, you can do that on channels 3 and 4. You can run them in double power mode if you want. So if you need just 2 channels of, I think it ends up being 200 watts a piece, you can do that. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of durability on these. You can control these with a control system. So if you want to put them into standby mode, every night at 2 a.m. and then wake them up at 8 a.m. or whatnot just to save on power, you can absolutely do that. So designed for long life, these things are rugged and really, from bang for your buck, I think an incredibly powerful and flexible amplifier. So on the control side, right, what are we going to use that's going to be, this is all stuff that lives in the rack, right, that we wanted, and that's more for on your side. But on the, actual customer side, what do we give them for options? So the DCP, Digital Control Panel, there are 3 different models, and the way you kind of remember them is DCP is always going to be at the front, and then there's going to be, for example, on this first one here on the left, it's 1V, 1 volume, 4S, 4 switches. All right. Next one here would just be DCP-4S, 4 switches. And the last one, 4V, 4 volumes, 4 switches. So this is what we're going to, expose to the customer on the wall that they can use to control their systems. They are much more flexibility and customization when you use them with the DSPs. The MAPA are just dip switches, and you're pretty much locked into whatever Japan gives you. But with the MTX and MRX, you can use buttons to recall presets. You can even use, your knobs to adjust EQ if you want. You can assign bands of EQ to the knobs. I mean, it gets really, really granular for that. Oh, sorry, I went ahead. So those are the 3 different ones. They can change by scene. One thing that's nice too is that on the processors, you can have these wall controls. You can have one processor really running 3 different rooms, and they can be independent mixes for each one. So you can have different control panels controlling different matrices within those. So it actually allows you to have one kind of main audio brain for maybe 2 or 3 rooms, or even more, actually up to 8 rooms, depending on what you're using for inputs and outputs. But it really does make it easy. So it's a Cat 5 home run back to the processor. We do have, on the DSPs, you can have up to 8, and you can either run those in daisy chain, or we do sell a little hub that lets you spider out all over the place. I know there's a kind of high-end nursing home that we have an MTX 5D and running all the background music and paging for the place, and I think we maxed out all of the DCPs in there, because they have one controlling, in the gym, in the lobby, in the dining room. There's a theater. There's 2 outdoor patio, outdoor in front, and there's one more. Oh, there's a pub there as well. So it allows you to have multiple controls over multiple zones. The MCP1 is a little bit more elegant look of one, where you can also store a lot more information and even have a lot more control. The big thing on this that I like too is that it gives you admin level privileges. So I had a school up in Massachusetts that was putting in an MTX3 for just a small kind of installed PA for PTO meetings and school board meetings and things like that, and they wanted wall controls in the place, and they originally had DCPs spec'd for it. I said, no, we're going to move over to these. And they said, well, why do we want to do that? I said, because a kid like me is probably in the school and is going to start messing with the wall control. With this, you can lock them out. You need a pin to access it. Nobody can start messing with your system. So multi-language displays are good on this as well. So if you have, I don't know, if you're doing a Mexican restaurant and they want Spanish in there, I know my customers up in Quebec definitely want French, so it does allow you to have different languages in there as well. It is PoE powered, so this does not get powered from the processors, but we'll get into how you can power those in a minute. So on the speaker side of things, we do offer an array of ceiling speakers, our VXC series. A couple things that I think are just when we were talking earlier about the ease of installation, this is an aspect where you're going to really see that in play. Things like even putting the taps on the front of the speaker. So if you have it installed, and if maybe somebody forgot to tap a speaker or whatnot, you don't have to deinstall the whole thing. It's ships with the mounting rings, the folding O-ring, so it's actually a C that opens up into an O-ring. It's got tile rails, anti-drop tabs on here, so when you push the speaker up, let the tabs click in place, and then you can let go, grab your drill, and install it from there. People laugh, but I love the handles on these. There's the handle so that you can either clip a couple of these to a carabiner on your belt, or even on a scissor lift, or just carrying them up and down the ladder becomes a lot easier, which I think is, again, it's one of those things that, people who are speccing systems probably don't care about, but I've heard from many, many installers that, man, I love that handle. And the last thing is the twist on and off grill, right? So these grills, if you need to paint them, you can just twist the grill off. Same thing if you got to check a speaker because maybe somebody didn't tap it at the right one. You're not deinstalling the speaker. You just twist off the grill, change the tap, you're back in business. They do come in black and white, and so often we have people who, actually I just did this last week for a customer in Canada, who had, it was like a dozen speakers going into a place, and nobody told them that the two by the lobby actually needed to be black, not white. So instead of deinstalling the speakers, they just got a couple of new grills and moved on with their lives. So you just twist it off, twist them back on, and then leave the other grills in the van for the next time that happens. So makes it a lot easier. And so those come in 8-inch, 6-inch, and 4-inch drivers. Really, I always tell people the only reason you'd really want to veer away from the 6-inch to an 8-inch is if you just need more power, or you actually want to tighten up that dispersion on there. Our VXC6 is obviously our most popular speaker, very, very common in conference rooms, restaurants, etc. So on the Series F, Series F, we just to let you know, we have flush mount versions of these, so they're but they're not plenum rated, so I always like to make sure that I let people know. But we do have a 3- and 5-inch ceiling speaker that if you have, an HVAC or sprinkler system that you can't put a full-size can in, we do have the low-profile ones that can go in there. Surface mount speakers. We have two sizes, 5- and 8-inch. These are IP35 rated for outdoor use, so think of these for patio speakers at a restaurant. Churches love having the music playing as people are walking in from the outside, etc. There's a lot of different applications for it outside of just your traditional surface mount. Transformers located in the back. There are the mounts ship with, and the only mount I don't have shown here is we actually do have a separate pendant bracket that allows you to hang these as a pendant speaker as well. It's a 3/8-inch threaded rod on these that I actually use quite a bit as a specification for a lot of restaurants. Black ones disappear. A lot of restaurants you see now, right? They have that open kind of brick and open ceiling plan. That these, the 5 inches or the 8s, really disappear into, but give you nice even coverage throughout the space. They do come with a dedicated mount, and then obviously a lot of different ways to hang those. And those come in 5s and 8s. These are one of the more intriguing ones. I always, whenever I do trade shows, I always make sure I put a couple of these on my table because people pick them up and go, what the heck is this? So these came out last summer. It's a VXS1ML. They do come in black or white. They are a full range speaker that come in, that's how they fit in the palm of your hand. Very wide dispersion rate on these, 170. For speech, you can use them on their own. If you're doing music, you want to have a sub with them somewhere. But as you can see, you can recess them into the ceiling. You can mount them into track lighting. I know there is a coffee store that is very famous from Seattle who is opening up about 1,000 what they call their reserve stores, and I think they're kind of like wine bar / coffee shop / kind of a high-end experience that they're doing, and they're using these in all of those stores because they are fitting in with their light fixtures and fitting in between these kind of big metal or wooden kind of clouds that hang down from the ceiling to give people that feeling that they're in like a wine barrel or something. But which is a very sleek look. There's also pendant brackets available for those as well. And a lot of different just ways where you need to sneak a little tiny speaker into somewhere. They're a really great fit. to kind of pair with them are, and if you could see me right now, you'd see me making air quotes, the sub that goes with it. So I lovingly call this the Kleenex box. It's about as big as a Kleenex box, maybe a little bigger. But they are matched to be used with the VXS 1ML, the speaker you just saw. You have ceiling mount hardware supplied, but you can recess these into the wall or into the ceiling. And what's cool about these is that the transformer is actually located in this. So if you want to use those little speakers in a 70-volt system, you actually spider them off of the back of this. The tap is set on the sub, and you daisy chain the subs together. But they are, not meant for a really high volume of low end. Think more for your smaller coffee shops, your you wouldn't be relying on this to provide your subs for, a loud sports bar or something like that. But for quieter environments where you just have a couple of those, actually Dairy Queen in Canada has got a bunch of stores that are this and for the satellite speakers with a small power amp and running all the background music for, a small little fast food restaurant. Really, that's what it's for. These just started shipping a couple weeks ago, actually, but our VXL series. So what makes these interesting is that they are made up of the drivers that you just saw in the VXS 1ML, but we have 8, 16, and 24 driver versions of these line arrays. They are IP35 rated for outdoor use. So if you need, if you have digital signage that maybe has some audio that needs to be, certainly churches, lecture halls, conference rooms are really big on these to kind of flank a display. If you're selling into conference rooms, this really makes a lot of sense. So why use a line array and where to use it? It is to really kind of control your dispersion rate. So from horizontally, you have 170 degrees of coverage, a lot of coverage. It's wide. On a point source, regular old surface mount speaker, you're kind of sending out this 360 degree bubble of sound out into the space. That means you're going to be reflecting maybe off of things that you don't want to. Whereas a line array, as you can see in the photo on the left, allows you the ability to kind of control that vertical dispersion much better. And because of that, your throw actually, you don't have as much volume loss as distance increases. So for lecture halls, certainly conference rooms, you think about conference rooms that have a long table that's just one big reflection, that if you can keep that dispersion off of the table so it's not bouncing off of it, you're going to get less reverberance in the room. They're also really, because they're those small drivers, really optimized for human voice as well. So if you think about side fills in a church or just even college lecture halls, would be all over these. And they're a sleek look, right? You can hang your display on the wall, have your speakers flanking it side to side, and really have a much better look. And you're not crawling into the ceiling. If you do need to turn these into a 70-volt system, the transformer is separate and just kind of merges into the speaker itself. You do have 2 parallel low impedance inputs on these. So you can turn it into a 70-volt system if you need to. They are in black and white, obviously. So one thing I did want to show, too, is the brackets. So they come with wall brackets that are included that just mount it very flush to the wall. But we do have a wall mount bracket that allows you to swivel it left to right. So if you do need to angle that speaker, you can. And the other bracket here in the middle that allows you to get it up high but then angle it down. So you can really start playing with how that speaker is throwing in any given room, right? You can swivel it side to side. You can pitch it forward if you want, or also just have it, maintain being flush up against the wall. You can also actually couple these as well, right? So if you do need a 7-foot, 11, almost an 8-foot speaker, you can take 2 of the 24s and couple them together for, you know, a big wall of sound. But you can do that with the 8s, the 16s, etc. So it just kind of adds to a lot of the flexibility that you need. The other thing you can do is actually couple them side by each, and what that actually does is pull in the coverage, you know, similar to what it's doing vertically by lining up a bunch of speakers. What it's actually doing horizontally, if you couple them next to each other, is pull that in. So if you do need to tighten up that that throw, whether it's for, you know, keeping people that are passing by in an area or whatnot, you can do it by actually coupling them together. And again, right, so these come in 8, 16, or 24 driver versions, and a multitude of ways to hang them and also run them in a 70-volt situation. And last but not least, on these, there are PoE versions coming out by the end of the calendar year. It's only the 16 speaker version to start out, but having Dante PoE speakers really starts changing how we can maybe start thinking about digital signage, right? We're already delivering our content of digital signage over IP traditionally. And so now if we can also use that same network drop and just put 2 speakers on the wall and power those from a switch in a data closet, if you're adding, you know, any audio component to digital signage, you can do that. Certainly for conference rooms, it becomes more of an IT peripheral than anything, but you can now hang it on a wall, plug it into a PoE switch using one of our processors that's running a Dante network, and you're done. You're not climbing in the ceilings. You're not worrying about, you know, HVAC paths and where this certain ceiling speaker is going to go. You can just do it all on the wall. I'm really, really excited for these to come out, because I think we've already had a lot of interest from the consultant community that are already speccing these, because they know it's going to be a game changer in the conferencing space. Real quick on our subs, the big thing to know here is that we do offer 2 versions of this model. T is for transformer, so if you do need a 70-volt sub, we do have it. But these are our 10-inch subs that we can run in any application. They ship with the wall mount bracket and rubber feet. If you do want to do a ceiling mount, it's a separate bracket that you can use, but you can do these on the ceiling. And so I'm going to try and hurry up. I don't want to run out of time here and leave you time for some questions. A couple other peripherals. So we do have a Dante paging microphone. So it can only be used with our MTX5D or our MRX7D. Remember, everything that we do, D is for Dante. You can have 8 buttons that it can assign to any function. So if you want it, you know, to be paging into different zones, one can be all zone. You can use button presses to recall presets, or even queue up a track on an SD card. So, you know, if you want it, somebody presses it at the end of the night in the store, you know, attention Kmart shoppers, we're closing in 10 minutes. You can do that. You can have up to 4 units connected per system. They are PoE powered, but these are great for hospitals, schools, warehouse paging, etc. Those type of applications, and it's all done, you know, over the network. And then you can expand those. You can actually add to the PXG1. You can actually add up to 2 of these, so they can have a 24-zone system. So when you start thinking about a larger school campus, hospital, where you have multiple even buildings that you need to page to, this allows you that flexibility. Dante switches. So Yamaha, unbeknownst to a lot of people, Yamaha actually has quite a large business unit of network switches that they only sell in Japan. And so they kind of are, you know, the Cisco of Japan as far as small to medium-sized business switch, you know, their share of the market. Over here, we do, for years, they've made Dante network switches that were made for tours. So when you're going out to see, you know, the Foo Fighters, and they're running a Dante network for all of their mixing, you know, they're using our SWP switches for that. They're meant for that touring world. So now we've started to introduce a line of PoE switches that are pre-configured for Dante. So as we go along, we're going to do some Dante-focused webinars with you because I think it's important. It is what's out there in the future of audio. It all of a sudden changes how you're going to start thinking about building your audio systems. But what this switch allows you to do is a very plug-and-play setup of a network using Dante-enabled. If you're only using our equipment, so our power amps, processors, maybe in whatever, by the end of the calendar year, our PoE speakers, you can do it all internally. They also do support third-party Dante devices, but just how you configure them, you have to then use Dante Controller to do it. So it's just kind of a different step to matrix everything. But it's very plug-and-play. It's meant for that you don't need to be an IT professional to set up this switch. It's already pre-configured for the Dante traffic, and we'll definitely do a lot more on this as we go along here, because I think where Dante fits from an application standpoint can really make a lot of jobs that seem like they could be complex become a lot more simple. So on the resources side, I think there's a couple things I want to touch on here. One of which is our what we call Siska, but our speaker calculator. And it's a software that we use to just do speaker layouts. A lot of times, I know David James, who's on the call here, has had a couple projects where, I'm basically asking him, hey, what's your room size? What are they looking to do? What's the ceiling height? And within a couple minutes, I can do up a very basic speaker layout design and hand to a customer to let them know a couple things, right? It's the easiest way to estimate how many speakers are going to be required. It allows you to give them a very professional-looking document in a system proposal. And my big reason for doing this is point number 4 here. That it prevents value engineering. A lot of times you'll talk to a customer and they say, hey, we only need 2 speakers in here. This is a great tool to use where you can, okay, I'll design that system with only 2 speakers, and I'll show you that you're going to call me in 6 months saying this place, this isn't loud enough, right? So it allows you to do the design, kind of maybe the way the customer thinks they need it to be done, and then do the design the way that you think it should be done and show them the differences and show them the math. And so what it does is it allows you to kick out kind of what I call these heat maps, right? So what you do is you choose your target SPL, how loud do you need it to be? The whole place needs to be, 82 dB is our target SPL, right? Well, if we do, in this case, it was just 8 ceiling speakers in a conference room, tapped at 15 watts. And I'm seeing that I'm actually hitting a target of 88 here. So if the target for the room was 82 dB, 96% of that room is actually over 82 dB. Nobody is ever calling me and saying, hey, this room's not loud enough for what we're trying to do in here. One thing that's great about this software too is that it allows you to do ceiling, surface mount, and subs all at the same time, or all just on their own. What I like too about it is that it allows you to play with speaker taps. So even in this case, we say, okay, I can, I'm well above my target for 15 watts. Let me see what 7.5 watts does, because you might be able to save the customer some money on the power amp side of things. It just allows you to play with those things. But I really am a firm believer in this, just educating the customer on what they need and why they need it. The next thing is our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is fantastic. There's over, I think now it's over 400 videos that we have on there. I actually use it a lot to help people, learn how to program things. They have small little, what I would call kind of commercials. Those little 1ML, the speaker that fits in the palm of your hand. Maybe you've got a customer who you'd be like, man, that would be perfect for what they're looking to do. if you search on YouTube on our channel, there's a little like minute and a half, almost like commercial for them that shows what they look like, show them recessed into the wall, into the ceiling. But it just kind of is a way that you can say, hey, I was thinking about these speakers for your office. What do you think? And you can send that over to them, and in a quick, very professional-looking video, they can get an idea of what it is. So I find this just such a great resource. I post links on LinkedIn all the time. When the VXL speakers first came out at the end of August, I was pumping it out on LinkedIn. And I just know people are sitting at their desk at lunch and they're scrolling through LinkedIn and Facebook or whatever, and that video autoplays. They might click on it and take a look. So it's a really great thing even from a tech support standpoint. There's a lot of tips and tricks how to program DCPs, etc. So a really, really great resource that I highly recommend you bookmark and keep checking up on, because there's a ton of great information. And then thirdly, this is a great resource as well. If you want to start kind of wrapping your head around what you'd need for different applications. These just kind of system design examples are on our website. And it's everything from lecture halls, conference rooms, churches, as you can see here, retail stores, small one, medium-sized restaurant, fitness club. There's a piano bar on there. But it just gives you an idea of, hey, what would I be looking at from a bill of materials if I were to do, any of these type of things. So I highly recommend you go through. They even tell you how much cable you're going to need to do it. These are just examples, obviously, and they're never going to be, the same. But it just kind of allows you to wrap your head around, hey, what are the pieces that I would need to make this work from a Yamaha standpoint. Certainly some of these, there's going to be video switchers and things like that Yamaha doesn't. But I think they're just a really, really good starting point for a basic system design that just allows you to kind of wrap your head around what's needed. And then the final resource is me. So please write down my email. That is my cell phone number there. So as I know a lot of the guys at Davis that I've dealt with already on some projects can attest to, I want to jump in and talk with the customer. If you need me to, I will help you out with the designs, answer questions, but please view me as a resource. Whether it's technical or even, checking and seeing if something's in stock. And if it's not, I get really great visibility into when it is, although it's not really been a problem. We had one large project that wiped us out of 8-inch ceiling speakers once for 4 weeks, but that's about it. But I get an email, every week that tells me what's in stock and how much is on boat from Japan on the way too. So I have a lot of visibility into what we have. I look at you guys. You guys are obviously our partner, and I need to be that resource for you, and I'm certainly willing to. So if anybody has any questions, speak now or forever hold your peace. I tried to keep it to 50 minutes, so I think we're good on that. If you have any questions or you want to type them in, I'd be more than happy to answer. Oh, actually, I do have one thing that I forgot to mention. But Davis, for any of the dealers on here, we can drop ship from our main warehouse in Buena Park to you directly. It doesn't have to go to Davis first. So if anyone else has any questions, if not, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it, and look forward to continuing to work with Davis and all your partners. Really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.